What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Quill and Hammer Reforging Fiction. I am Trevor.
And I'm Zach, and today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be debating a movie, whether it was good or whether it was bad. Trev, what are we doing?
Dude, we're talking about the Uncharted movie starring who?
Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg.
Dang straight. Now,
So,
Zach, we have differing opinions on this.
yes, we do.
And I'm gonna take uh, our Reforging Fiction opinion of there are things that we need to do to fix this movie.
And I don't think there are. I really don't think there are. But let's give a little bit of background.
Okay, all right, let's start. Head
The
out.
reason why we have strong opinions of this movie is because Uncharted is arguably the first video game franchise that we really loved, I would say.
Yep.
Back in, I don't know, early 2000s, I think 2013, I guess that's not early 2000s, 2012-ish, we began playing Drake's Fortune, Among Thieves, and Drake's Deception, and eagerly anticipated the release of Uncharted 4, A Thief's End, right?
Yep.
We loved these games. They were so good, so fun, they're timeless.
Yep.
And so naturally, when a movie adaptation is made from this franchise, we're gonna be we're gonna be very invested in it, I'll say.
Yes, and we were.
And we were. And now we have differing opinions.
We
So,
do.
Trev, why don't you start us off? Why
Okay.
do you think it needs to be reforged?
So the problem I have with the movie is that it's a hodgepodge of just whatever they thought was cool. A little bit of this from one, a little bit of this from four, a little bit of this from two. It rubs me the wrong way. I don't, and I know I'm the wrong one here, but I'm right. So everyone else can just shove it. The point is, it's like they were just like, this would be cool. It'd be cool if we had the airplane scene. This would be cool. Let's add Elena in. This would be cool. Let's bring
You
Sam in.
mean you mean Chloe, not
Chloe,
Elena.
sorry, Chloe. Yeah, they did not have Elena. Excuse me. They should have. That is one of my points we'll talk about later. But it just was too random for me. And I feel like because of that, you're gonna have a hard time with the second and third movies if they ever get to them.
Well, see, here's why I think you're wrong. Here's why I think that opinion is wrong. Okay. You're you're wanting them to be one-to-one adaptations of the games. And that's never going to work, primarily because it's the same thing with the books that we've been discussing. You can't have a one-to-one remake of something in just an hour and a half to 2 hours. It's just not going to happen, right? And here's the other reason why the hodgepodge, so to speak, isn't as big of a deal as you make it out to be. The heart of Uncharted is globetrotting against all odds, puzzles and mystery combined with history, and then choosing the right in the end, making the right choice in the end, instead of being a greedy two-bit thief, right? That's the core of Uncharted. And I think they hit that. They absolutely hit that. Sure, they had the heist scene from Uncharted 4. They had the plane scene from Uncharted 3. Like they incorporated some of these big set pieces, fine. But the core of Uncharted is still there. And it's its own movie. It's its own movie. It had its own end goal. They were looking for their own piece of history. I thought one of the best things about the movie was solving the puzzle in that old Catholic church, right? And then going down underground, and then that's when you have Chloe betray them. It's like it was its own film. It was its own film. Sure, the set pieces were there, and maybe they were similar, maybe they took some things, but it's still an uncharted adventure at its core at the end of the day.
I can agree with that because it was Uncharted, but that doesn't mean that there are things that I wouldn't change and that I think would have made it better. Now, the
Okay,
first
well,
we're gonna start. The first thing is the relationship between Sully and Drake. It is it rubbed me wrong the entire time. Sully, as you know, in all of the video games, is the one person that Drake can trust. Except for I know what you're gonna say. He got shot in number one, and then
exactly,
but but
exactly.
but they knew each other long
Sure,
before they met. Yeah, and I get different universe or whatever. But
but
but that is the core of what we love about their relationship.
oh, sure, but I think Uncharted 3 sort of retconned Uncharted 1 because there was this uncertainty. If Drake had really known Sully from when he was 15, 16, he wouldn't have had that uncertainty when he showed up on Elena's camera. It just wouldn't have happened. So I think the relationship, the way that it started here, is a good thing because they're obviously setting up for a Drake's Fortune-esque adventure in the next film. Their the beginning of their relationship in this film lends much more plausibility to Drake's uncertainty about Sully in that scene. I didn't mean to override you here. Go ahead and
You
say how
did.
you'd fix it.
But the fix is they can still trust each other and but Drake can still be the insecure kid that was left when he was, you know, 9 years old at the orphanage by his brother. He can still be the kid who, yeah, he pickpocketed, you know, uh, Sully in number three, and then Sully tracks him down, you know, befriends him a little bit, but he can still be wary, but can still trust Sully more than he can trust anyone else, you know? He can that's how you fix it. That is more plausible than anything. A scarred person takes a long time to get over being scarred. And I don't know how old Drake is in the first film, but presumably around Tom Holland's age, early 20s. Um, I don't think that's enough time for a deeply, deeply scarred person who's lost his mom, lost his brother, grew up in an orphanage, was all alone, has been trying to make his way for, as long as he has. I don't think that it's implausible for him to be like, did I have, do I really know this guy? Is Sully really who I thought he was? You have this moment where it's like, wow, should I really be trusting this guy? He got shot. I ran away. Apparently, he lived. Now he's helping these other people. There is room for a little bit of doubt there in a plausible relationship like that. But at the end of the film, yeah, they trust each other. They are together and they're in it forever. Sully brings the gold at the end. I mean,
So you don't think that that was a plausible progression? You don't think they should have trusted each other at the end? Is that what you're saying
no, no, I
of the
think
film?
I think they should trust each other at the end of the film. But I think that they should have had a pre-existing relationship in the film rather than this antagonistic, uh, you know, Nate doesn't trust anyone. Sully's kind of a sleazy little, but he is. That is kind of who he is. You're a dirty
Yeah,
old
that is who
man,
he is.
Sullivan.
You're a dirty old man. Uh-huh.
But the point is, I feel like they should have had a little bit less at each other's throat, you know, I'm only in it for myself kind of thing because of that. Like and to go back to your point, I realize you can't necessarily one for one remake each thing. But if you're going to, you should, if you're gonna make this movie, then the core relationships should be the core relationships from the beginning. That's all I feel. And I know you're going to disagree with me, but I think that that was a missed opportunity because you can still show a little bit of doubt is solely, you have this whole thing, you can still have Drake being a little distrustful even though Sully is the closest person to family that Drake has had up to that point, and you can still have a little bit of like, gosh, why do I trust this guy? Or he does something that you don't understand, that Nate doesn't understand, and whatever. Or he gets a little bit hoodwinked by Chloe, which happens in, you know, number two. Like, all of these things can happen, and they don't necessarily have to agree and be always on the same page. But that relationship and the deep trust that, like you said, the core of it is, yeah, they're globetrotting, they're kind of, thieves, they're definitely out for themselves, but then they do the right thing anyway. That core is there. Yeah, Sully and Drake may not agree on certain things. He didn't, start the job with Flynn and Chloe in Uncharted 2. Um, but then he shows up and he finishes things. That's my point.
See, I get what you're saying, but the way that I think you need to look at this film as just an alternate origin story. They took the liberty of cutting out Drake and Sullivan meeting in Cartagena, and they streamlined it to this and had them have an adventure on the way, right? And I think at the end of the film, you're still at the place where you want to be in terms of starting Uncharted 1. So I get what you're saying. It's uncomfortable to see them at each other's throats. It's uncomfortable to see the uncertainty with Sully making certain decisions, sure. But I think in the end, you end up at the same place to begin Uncharted Drake's Fortune, the first one, right? And
Okay.
my other point that I wanted to bring up is less about Sully and more about Chloe. Now, in Uncharted 2, in the very beginning, Drake is sitting on some beach at some bar, and Flynn comes up, right? Flynn pitches him the job about, you know, the Chintamani Stone, all that kind of stuff. Or I guess not quite the Chintamani Stone. They didn't figure that out yet. But Marco Polo's Lost Fleet, right?
Yep.
While they're talking, Chloe comes up. Drake obviously recognizes her, and Chloe pretends like they don't know each other. And then the next scene, they they're together, and Drake's like, "What are you doing?" Like there's obviously some history, and in the games, we've never gotten an explanation for that, right?
Right.
So, in my mind, this first film introducing Chloe is a way to show that history, right? To show the history, to set it up for later down the road, and again, to introduce a little bit of distrust. Obviously, Drake really liked Chloe. He fell for her, at least to some degree. And I don't think he has any hard antagonism towards her at this point. He gave her the false clue, knowing she would take it, and then kind of just chuckles to himself when he sees her in the boat while they're flying away in the helicopter, right?
Hmm.
And and that's kind of it. And so I think had that been shown, or let me say it this way, that's a plausible first interaction leading up to how it happens in Uncharted 2 Among Thieves, right? So I will concede that the Sullivan and Drake interaction isn't ideal, and it does make you feel a little uncomfortable. But you do get to the same point in the end. They trust each other to a degree, and there's still a little bit of room for doubt. And you have the added benefit of giving some context to Drake and Chloe's relationship. That's my take.
Screw you.
Sorry. Told you I would have good points, man.
Dude, okay, all right. I can concede that, yeah, if and maybe that's why I haven't, maybe that's why I didn't consider that. I don't consider this as an alternate backstory
Hmm.
and have never looked at it through that lens. So I can concede that point. Um, but it still just rubs me the wrong way. It does, and I can't help it. But I don't know. But let's go on, okay? I will concede that if you put it that way, you can fix that. I would still do things differently, but whatever. The next thing that I wish, I don't know. I don't know if it bothers me or not, but it kind of bothers me, the Sam angle. I
Yeah,
don't.
that's one I don't have a good point for. Go ahead and give me your thoughts.
So, so they use Sam as a tool to coerce Nate through the entire film.
Right.
That is the stick that they use to get him on the trail. That's how Sully, you know, brings him in, convinces him to do it. He's doing it all for, Sam, his brother who's dead. That's not how it happened in the games. And granted, we talk about liberties and things or whatever, but solely at his heart is a good guy, honor among thieves kind of guy.
Right.
He is not as sleazy dirtbag as he appears necessarily. But like that bugs me throughout the entire film, that Sam is this lever that they are just pushing Drake with all the way through. And it rubs me the wrong way. Yeah, he's dead. Yeah, we left him to die. Yeah, so and so killed him. Yeah, Sam was the one. And how do you fix that?
I mean, the problem that I have, so unless I am mistaken, you'll have to remind me. I wasn't able to watch the movie again leading up to our conversation today, but Sully genuinely believes that they left him for dead. They weren't able to go back for him and that he's gone.
Yep.
But when he meets Drake, or Nate, I guess I should say, when he meets Nate, he implies that he might still be alive and that he knows what happened to him, type thing. Is that how it goes, right?
Yeah.
More or less.
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't know. I think instead of implying that he's still alive, I don't know. It's a tough one. Honestly, I wouldn't have brought Sam into this one in the beginning.
Right.
And I think having Sullivan and Sam be partners before Drake and Sullivan are partners, I don't think was a good choice.
No, it's
You
a
know,
mistake.
I'll give them some credit because when Uncharted 4 was being developed, they went through a few ideas. There was one, oh, what was it? Some kind of promotional line or something where Sam was speaking and he said something along the lines of, "You left me for dead. We were brothers. I'm coming, I'm coming to find you." So it painted Sam in more of this antagonist picture. And obviously they ended up choosing a different route for that, which I think was for the better.
Right.
But that gives me more of the vibe of how they handled Sam in this film. They're making him more of a I was wronged, I'm mad, and I'm coming for revenge type of arc. At least that's how I see it happening. That's how I see it playing out. And there's some question whether he's upset at Drake, whether he's upset at Sullivan, who it is, right? So I think that's sort of how they're wanting to handle Sam in the film series.
Yes.
But I I can't give a good point as to how to justify it. That is one point where I will have to concede to you.
Yeah.
I can see where they're going with it, but I don't have a good rationale for why it should have happened that way. So how would you fix it?
Well, I like introducing Sam. If we're doing a backstory, more adult themed alternate backstory to Drake, then I am more than happy to have the orphanage scene. I think it paints the picture of he's abandoned by his brother, he gets lost, everything, and then he doesn't have contact with his brother for a while. I think that's the key. Now, obviously we know in Uncharted 4 that um you have Rafe and Nate and Sam, they're all on this heist together where they infiltrate the prison and they're trying to get the things, and as they're escaping the prison, Sam gets shot and falls off of a building. Am I right?
That's
And so,
correct.
so your natural idea is my brother just died. I can't go get him because if I jump down, I'm going to get shot and killed too.
Right.
And so he leaves, Nathan Drake, leaves thinking, my brother's dead. You know, we're screwed. I can't do this. And that's that. He doesn't know he's alive. I think you have to have something like that. Not necessarily something like that, but you have to have like either I have a brother and he has disappeared, or, you know, I don't know. I don't know how you do it because because presumably sometime in between meeting Sully in the films or in the games. So 13, 14-year-old Drake meeting Victor Sullivan in what is it, Cartagena?
Cartagena.
Cartagena. So when they meet, like presumably sometime in between there and Drake's fortune, this happened, right?
Right.
So you need something there that it's like you have a brother, but he's disappeared. It doesn't need to be with Rafe. It doesn't need to be about, you know, uh, the lost pirate colonies or anything like that. All it needs to be is you introduce the brother, and somewhere in between Victor meeting Drake and, the first third of the film, he just mentions, I had a brother, he died. That's all. I think that is the extent that you need Sam in this film. And then
So you think Victor Sullivan should have had no contact with Sam
Victor
previously?
Sullivan should have had no contact with Sam
Okay, fine.
because that is more untrustworthy than anything else. You're a thief.
Yeah.
You're a thief. You expect everyone else to be a thief. You expect everyone to kind of be in it for themselves, especially if you're Drake. Um, and you just don't know how you're going to, you know, how are you going to trust this guy? You just met him. But if this guy knows your brother and your brother has disappeared and you don't know anything about it and all of this stuff, like then your brother is dead, you can't trust him. So I don't think that should be a thing. I don't even think that that Sully should even know that Sam exists. If
Okay.
as long as we're doing an alternate backstory, I don't think that Sully should know that Sam exists prior to the film. And then it's just an off-mentioned thing. You know that he has a brother because Sam gets expelled from school and runs off, and then Drake says, "I don't know what happened to him," or "I had a brother, he's dead," or something. It doesn't matter what it is. And that's what you have to decide how you're going to proceed in the next film. But I like that at the very end of the movie, Sam's in jail writing a letter to Nate, and you think, "Oh wow, he is alive."
Right.
That is a brilliant plot twist that you don't see coming unless you have seen, unless you're in all of the games. But as far as a movie plot point goes, that is fantastic to set up intrigue for the next movie. But
Now,
but you can't have that in there. You just need a little bit of a teaser, a little couple of things here and there. But I don't think Sully knows. And I think that's the only way to do it.
okay, let me try and rebut you just a little bit.
Okay.
I think I agree that having the plot twist of Sam actually being alive is a good one, but it's only a good one when he's been talked about throughout the film.
Right.
So I think he still has to be a key motivating factor for Drake if you're going to rely on that reveal in a post-credits scene MCU type of fashion,
Yeah.
right? So in that vein, I don't know that having I guess there has to be some kind of uncertainty, right? But if it doesn't involve Sully, then why is Nate talking about it? It's
Easy.
like,
Easy. This was their dream to go treasure hunting. The Marco Polo expedition is something that they've talked about before, clearly. So he is very invested. And then Victor's like, "How do you know about this?" Me and my brother used to talk about it before he died.
okay, okay, fine,
And then
fine.
they do something and it's like, I remember you know, talking about this with Sam, you know. Just because it's lost doesn't mean that it's gone. There's a difference. I can't remember how he says it. Um,
I don't remember either.
it's not gone, it's lost. There's a difference.
Right, that's it.
And you can find something that's lost. Like you can have little things here and there that remind you and that you bring Sam up that are revelations to Sully, just like they are to the audience.
Okay,
And so the
fine.
motivation becomes, and you can say like, you know, he was killed. So and so killed him. You can have this deep fear, this not deep fear, this deep um sense of loss, this sense of my brother kind of died because it's my fault a little bit. I left him. You can have these same thing, the psychological scarring that Drake has. And part of the thing that we love about Drake is his arc between, Drake's fortune and number four. Why can't I remember what number four is called?
A thief's
A
end. Come
Thief's
on, are you
End.
even a
Gosh,
fan?
it's early. That's my excuse. But between Drake's fortune and A Thief's End, the arc that he goes on from semi-loner who only kind of trusts Sully to he trusts Sully. He has Elena who he needs wholeheartedly, needs someone like Elena who has morals and things to keep him on the right path. And then, you know, the kind of pre-existing relationship with Chloe and stuff. And then in number three, you have Chloe and Cutter. And so he's developing these relationships that are turning like half partnerships, half whatever's, but he's building these relationships, becoming a better man. And then he gets to a thief's end, and the only reason he goes off is because he thinks his brother is going to die.
Right.
And he is manipulated by his brother and the guilt that he feels for leaving his brother to go and clear his brother's name. And
Right.
so he risks everything for that because it's like he's atoning for his sins and all of that. But at the end of the thing, he's like, I'm done. I'm going legit. I'm gonna just be an archaeologist. We're gonna do Elena's film thing. I own this business. Like that's how it ends with him being a good man, but still who he is at the core.
Right.
So you can have that motivation and you can set that up in this film by like, you know, 2/3 of the way through the film, Sully says something like, "Keep bringing up your brother Sam. What happened?" And he's like, "I, it's my fault he's dead," or something like that. I don't know. You set it up. He died, and I had to leave him. And it's that same thing where Sully in the film is saying like, you know, we we were doing this job. He got shot. We were pinned down. I had an escape route. I had to, it was like either me leave or we both get shot. Like, what did you want me to do? But like, you put that on Drake, where Drake
Right.
is like the guilt, but like, what else could I have done? Was I supposed to die with my brother in this last stand, or escape? What would the brother that's always trying to protect the little brother do? Would he
Right.
say, you Zach, if we're going and you and I are doing a job, I get shot. Am I going to be like, Zach, come back and die with me? No, I'm like, Zach, get out of here. Go. I'm dying. Like, you know exactly what my response is going to be. It's save yourself. I love you. I don't want you to die. Go. You know? But put
That's
yourself in
very
Drake's.
touching, Trev.
Yeah.
It's very touching. I've
And I
got
know that's not, if the tables were turned, Zach, no, you would be like, Trevor, you get your butt over here and you die with
get
me, you
over here and
son of a
save me.
bee. But no, you know what I mean? And then put yourself in Drake's shoes. We do a job together. You leave me. I am dying. You escape, but you have that survivor's guilt for the rest of your
Right.
life.
Right.
And then you find out I'm alive, and then you're like, gosh, I left Trevor for 8 years to rot in prison with a bullet wound. And I show back up, and you're like, and if I spin that yarn that Sam did, to find the
Right.
treasure,
Right.
it's like, well, shoot, I owe Trevor. I have to help him, or he's going to die again. And that guilt is what propels you forward. So you need to utilize that, knowing what we do about all four films. You need to use, or four movies, or games. What is wrong with me? Four games. You know that you have to use that as the motivator to push Drake forward if you're going to use Sam at all.
Okay, so your final argument is that it needed to have been Drake. It needed to have occurred how it occurred in the game, not have Sully save himself,
Yes.
and that would be a better introduction for Sam and a better motivator for Drake down the road.
100%. It solves the trust problem between Sully and Drake, even though there is still that problem because they build that relationship over four games as well. But really, by the time you get to game two, they have solidified that relationship into who they are, right?
Right.
So you can still have them in that uncertain but trusting thing. But if Sam is alive and it's Sully's fault that he left him, then there's no way that Nate and Sully can ever reconcile.
I might disagree with that because I do think I think Drake can come to the understanding that yeah, you had to save yourself, which I think he does in the film. But I can concede the point that a better motivator for Drake would be the nostalgia of doing this with his brother, and then later down the road you open up the guilt factor, the psychological scarring. So I agree with you there, except for that last point you said. I think they can come to a reconciliation that their relationship isn't gone forever between Drake and Sully. I think they can come to an understanding and can still become that pseudo father son type relationship, right?
Right.
So, but fine, you win the Sam point.
Okay. The really those are the two main things that bother me. Now, if we're suspending, and not suspending reality, but if you had never watched or never played any of the Uncharted games, you watch this film, it is a fantastic film.
Yeah, it's great.
So, I like the gosh, what's his name? I can't I can't think of his name, but all I see when I see him is the dad from Spy Kids.
Oh man, that's like one of his worst films.
I
That's the
know,
one you
but
picked. Dude, how about Zorro? Come
well, I
on.
know, but the first time I ever saw him was in Spy Kids, and so it was like that's who
That's
he
all he
is.
is.
You
The
know, you can't
Spaniard
you
whose
can't
name I can't
escape him. I know
remember.
he was Zorro and he was brilliant, I'm sure, but like he's the dad from Spy Kids, and I
The
just
dad
see
from
him
Spy
pulling that
Kids.
mustache off or putting it back on or. So you can
Yeah.
see him there, but I felt like he was brilliant in the role. I feel
Oh,
like
for sure.
he was I mean, he's just a fantastic actor. I can't even remember his name. But
I can't remember what it is either. That's a shame.
that is, I
That's
should
a
have
real
looked
shame.
this up. We should be a little bit better sometimes, but
We should.
but we're reforging fiction, not the brilliant actors that play in these films for the most part.
Exactly.
Um, now the plot twist I did not see coming though was when what's her name killed him.
Oh yeah, that was jarring.
That was so jarring. That was so brilliant though. And and as far as a plot twist that you didn't see coming and that just empowers, I don't want to say empowers women, but like gosh, you and I
It
are
was
kind of
awesome.
like you can girl boss wrong so often and it just falls flat because it's implausible. But this is like genius. You have this
Right.
sociopath mercenary, um,
Hmm.
treasure hunter, and this cocky rich guy who's like, I can buy whatever I want. I am going to restore my family's honor.
Right.
And then he double crosses her because he hired her and Chloe got the information and the crosses and everything, and so she's pissed, and she has the two Scottish guys, and
Right.
you know, and she just is like, you're no longer useful. I've got all of your resources. We're already on
Hmm.
our way. We've paid for everything. I'm the boss now.
Right.
And that is brilliant. So I don't have a problem with that.
No, and I love that. And honestly, I wouldn't have minded something like that in one of the games.
Me neither.
Like I think about Flynn in Uncharted 2, Why didn't he just pop Lazarevich in the chest a couple of times, or right in the forehead for that matter? You know what I mean? Like
Right?
everybody's terrified of this guy, but like he's still just a dude
He's
until
still
he,
just a dude.
drinks the sap anyway.
Right.
But no, I loved that plot twist. It was it was so unexpected, and I mean it just was great. It was an incredible plot twist.
It was. So I love that. Um, I love the cameo of what's his name on the beach. I
Oh yes.
that
Yes.
that little nod, and you've got Drake's uh what's it called? What's the title of the song going in the background?
Just
Da-na-na,
Drake's theme. Just Drake's theme.
na-na.
Nolan North combined with Drake's theme. I mean, when I saw that in the theater, I I had the hugest grin on my face. Like
Yeah,
I looking like a complete idiot. But holy cow, it was so fun to have that cameo.
it
And
was
just the something like that happened to me once. Like it's so funny.
right,
Like fan service in the best way.
right. And so as far as we're going, um those are my two huge points, Sam and Sully. The only
Mm.
other thing I would have added is I wanted a brief introduction to Elena somewhere. I feel like just to appease my wanting her to be in the film, in the next film, if they had said, it's like kind of the end and you just have like you know, I don't know, a business card, or she's on a TV in the background doing her show or something. Just a little something that you don't even need to say her name, but there's just this blonde chick in front of an archaeological site on the TV when Nate goes in to do his little um, trade-off with the map and the ring at the end.
Okay, okay, fine. I can concede that. It would have been a nice little Easter egg, but I don't think it's a deal breaker for the film.
It's not a deal breaker for the film, but if she's not in the next film, it is.
Well, I don't think there's any reason to believe that she wouldn't be.
Right,
I mean, at the end of the day, she is like the second main character.
right,
Maybe you can argue it's Nate, then Sully, then Elena, but she is Uncharted. She's as much Uncharted as Drake is.
right,
Even in Uncharted 2 and 3 for that matter, when you think, well, she's not here. She's still there. She still ends up coming back. She is Uncharted.
right.
And so I think maybe not having her irritates that point a little bit because she's just as much Uncharted as Drake is, right?
Yes.
But I don't think there's any reason to believe that she won't be in the next film.
Right. I just
Whether
want that
they
reassurance, Zach.
it's gonna happen, Trev. Don't you worry, big guy. It's gonna happen. No, but whether they do, a closer one-to-one um adaptation of Drake's Fortune or not, I have no reason to believe they wouldn't put Elena in there.
See, I hope so, and I don't know. Like I said, they clearly set up at least partially Drake's fortune, right? They're
Oh, for
looking
sure.
for the Nazi boat
Hmm.
thing or whatever. Um, Now I will admit I would love for it to be, if we are just projecting forward, I would love for like all of the same plot points. Um, Maybe like a one-to-one-ish kind of thing where
Hmm.
like they go to the same places, they have the same kind of things, but you can embellish. I'm not against embellishment in these films.
Right.
Um, because just like with, Harry Potter or, you know, anything else. It's like you can't really adapt a movie to a book or a book to a movie
Right,
because a printed, book is so much different than the movie. You have to paint the words differently. You can fit an entire chapter of a book in 5 minutes in a film
right,
because you
right,
take out all of the descriptions, you've got the dialogue in there, you can express the main points and move on. So like I'm not expecting, you know, them to just replay all of the cutscenes,
right.
but there are, embellishments and little things that you can do here and there. Bring the cat that Sully has at the end. Do you remember that of the movie?
Oh, yes.
Like
I
bring that. Yeah.
forgot.
I can't remember what they call him, but bring
I
the
can't
cat
remember
along.
either.
Like it's just silly things like that. I don't care, but as long as the core, if they're going to make a Drake's Fortune, then I want it to be a Drake's Fortune movie. I want them to find Sir Francis Drake's burial spot.
Hmm.
I want um I want the Nazi U-boat. I want them to go you know, to the island. And when does Elena come back? Why can't I remember where, they ditch her, they have the U-boat thing, and and then they're at the Aztec, you know, whatever, and that's where Elena comes back because she followed them.
She's right there at the U-boat, remember?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right after Sully dies, Drake's
Yes.
running and then she cold
Right.
cocks him.
Yes. I love that.
I know
Uh,
you do.
Um, so anyway, they get back there, you've got, and then they go to the island, they get shot down, they're making their way through the island, they find you know, the old manor thing, they go underground, they find the Nazi. No, am I switching things up now?
No, 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 no. That's right.
They find
They
like the
find
old Nazi thing invested by the zombies, they
hmm
find the underground burial thing, they um like if you're gonna make it, I want like all of those main plots. Maybe you can throw one or two out and bring something back in or whatever for cinematic
right,
sake if it's too difficult. But like the underground puzzle section where they're fighting people and they're trying to solve puzzles. I love
right,
that idea. You have the Nazi research center and the generators and the zombies and things, and then you find uh the what's it called? I want that, Zach. If
right,
you know the broad strokes, if they're going to bring other people in, great. If they're gonna somehow bring Chloe into it, sure, I guess, fine. But as long as Elena is Elena, then I'm fine.
right.
Then bring Chloe in, introduce Cutter. We have
You
no idea
know,
who Cutter is. you
Cutter
know
is the most underutilized character in the entire franchise, and it pains my soul.
it pains my soul where he shows up in.
He's
Yeah,
he's only a number three, and he's the undercover agent,
yeah,
and he's extremely loyal, right? Oh, and then he gets a name drop in A Thief's End, and that's it.
yeah.
That's it. And I it was a missed opportunity
It
for
was.
sure.
And so, like, introduce him, bring him in. Maybe pepper in, how Sully knows Marlowe or something. Like little
Right,
Easter eggs that, don't necessarily even, I mean, what are the chances that this franchise makes it to four more movies?
pretty slim. Let's be real.
Right.
But
But hypothetically, you can drop in little tiny things here and there, little Easter eggs
mm,
that could set up a third movie and a fourth movie, without actually, um, having to do it.
right,
And so you can set up the continuity, and I think, and maybe we're getting over time here pretty quick, but we talk about, the sequel syndrome problem,
hmm hmm
and it's like you write the first movie thinking, I hope this works. And then the movie ends and it's a hit, and then you really don't have anywhere to go, so then you're scrambling to make something up.
Right,
The key to that is you have to view it as, if we made another movie, can we set this up without setting it up? We don't want like a
right,
cliffhanger or something, but like, could we bring enough little points in to make another movie and have it seamlessly transition to the next, group or whatever?
right,
So I think that's what I want. And that's what going all the way back to the now, even with it framed as like a, you know, alternate origin story, a couple of those things would go a long way to make um make me feel better about the next movie.
right,
And those are the things that I'd fix. And it's all about the relationships, not necessarily the cinematic or anything or the acting, which was brilliant. It's just a couple of choices here and there that I think make or break the tone for the next movie.
all right. Okay, I can respect that.
Yeah. So anyway, I feel like I've chatted way too much. Zach, do you have any final thoughts?
No, I think I've said my piece. I think I made my points quite clear. But let us know what you guys think in the comments. Who won the debate? Was Uncharted good enough? Was it better than expected, or did it need some serious reforging? Let us know. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share this with all your friends because we'll be back every week reforging fiction.
We will talk to you later. I'm Trevor, this is Zach, and we'll talk to you next time.